בורא עולם תעזור לנו, בורא עולם תעזור לנו.
Shalom Uvracha, Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. This evening, with the help of Hashem, we hope to study together the Haftarah of Parashat Zachor. However, I'd like to begin with a technical announcement, as I began last week's video with as well, and that I've been informed by the esteemed and beloved producers of our Torah videos that there's a financial problem in continuing our Haftarah series, and therefore if there's anyone out there watching who either directly or indirectly is in a position to fund the continued studies, then please contact our producers at Shalom, SHALOM, at Machlis Presents, MACHLIS Any monies forwarded to them will be used exclusively for the production of the Haftarah series or the holiday series. This has nothing to do with our Shabbat projects, nothing to do with our hospitality projects. This will be used exclusively for the videos. If not, it seems very possible that the Haftarah series will have to end in about 5 weeks from now, around the time of the holiday of Pesach. So each one is requested to do what they can, but we bless you in any case, whether you are actively involved in supporting it or not. We love you, we bless you, and we're sorry to even have to make this kind of announcement. Shalom, everybody. We're learning this evening chapter 15 of Samuel 1. Chapter 15 of Samuel 1 is the Haftarah of Parashat Zachor. We do not read the regular Haftarah of the Torah portion of this week, since the Shabbat before Purim, always, in all years, we read the special commandment of God as is recorded in the book of Deuteronomy at the end of chapter 25 of Devarim about Zachor, Et Asher Asa Lecha Amalek. The parallel story in the book of the prophets, the Haftarah, is from chapter 15 of Samuel 1, where Shmuel comes in the name of God to Shaul, to King Saul, and tells him to go to battle and to destroy the Amalekites. And we read of the struggles of Shaul in trying to carry this out to the best of his ability. We read about the downfall on some level of Shaul due to perhaps various levels of mercy, or perhaps misplaced mercy, depending on how you understand the story. And the entire Haftarah deals with this theme of the Amalek teachings, and that's why it's chosen. That's why it's chosen as the Haftarah of Parashat Zachor. I would just like to share that according to at least one approach, the commandment to wipe out Amalek does not apply if Amalek, the battle against Amalek, is only when Amalek is on the level of Amalek. Meaning, Amalek is a symbol of ultimate evil. Today we do not have any identification of Amalek. Any discussion about destroying Amalek is only academic. There is no Amalek identity in the world. However, even at the time where there was a nation of Amalek, according to at least the school of thought of the Rambam, Maimonides, as understood by Kesef Mishneh and others, the battle against Amalek does not take place if the Amalekites are willing to live in peace, in a certain level of understanding of the commandments of God, in a certain level of acceptance of the 7 Noahide commandments. In other words, if Amalek is Amalek, conceptually, then there's a commandment to go to battle. But if Amalek accepts the Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach, according to the Rambam's theory, then the battle does not take place. I'll read the language as is repeated by Yalkut Me'am Lo'ez in the book that I have in my hand. This is based on Rambam's teaching in the Hilchot Melachim and the Kesef Mishneh. Da u'de'u sha'amilchama ba'amalek dafka kishelo ishlimu im Yisrael achar shenikru lahem l'shalom. The battle against Amalek is when they do not accept the terms of peace. V'lo kibelu alehem sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach. This is extremely important. In other words, there is a way for Amalek to be redeemed if they accept the most basic teachings of God for all of humanity, and they accept upon themselves Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach. Avalim hishlimu ein horigim otam. Then the battle does not take place. They are, as the Rambam writes, as the Kesef Mishnah understands it, they have left the category of Amalek. V'harei heim ki b'nei Noach hakisherim. Very important words. V'harei heim ki b'nei Noach hakisherim. They can reach the level of the pure Noahites in the world, even Amalek. And he has a technical teaching of this, a remez, a hint at this. I'm not sure I'll be able to explain it well on the video, but I'll try. Only people who are understanding of the musical cantillations of the text will understand what he says here in the Yalkut Me'am Lo'ez. He says that at the end of the reading of Parshat Zachor, it says you should remember what Amalek did. Do not forget. Lo tishkach. Those are the last two words of the Torah reading. He says the word "do not" and the word "forget" are separated in the cantillations, in the trop, in the musical notes. It's lo tishkach, not lo tishkach, not do not forget, but do not forget. What? Lo tishkach, or it's at the end of the Haftarah. Lo tishkach. He says, why should they be separated? And the Zohar teaches, the Zohar, which is the main work of mystical Jewish tradition, that when the lo is separated from the next word, it means do not forget, but maybe there are times where you should forget. Right? Lo, but tishkach. And he says perhaps symbolically what's being said there is that there are times where you do not battle Amalek. Even though the Torah is speaking about battling Amalek, when Amalek reaches a certain kind of level of purification, a certain kind of level of rectification with purity.
According to the Kesef Mishnah, why do we still read Chezach Amalek if they, according to the Kesef Mishnah, went back to regular Goyim?
No, because first of all, there's a concept of understanding Amalek in its conceptual sense. In its conceptual sense, a Drosh, you have to understand the message of Amalek.
Okay, but we don't need to read it every year.
No, there's a mitzvah to commemorate the Amalek's attack against the Jewish people.
For what reason?
To understand how to deal with certain kinds of levels of enemies.
Not
to
to
understand
forget.
what?
Not to forget.
Not to forget the history of the Jewish people. Not to forget the battle against Amalek. And we read it specifically, perhaps.
But we read the Michel. We don't read.
On Purim we read the story of Amalek. That's what we read on Purim morning before we read the Megillah. We read Vayavo Amalek. We read the story of the battle. What? We read the story of the battle of Amalek from the book of Exodus. It could be that's part of and you know, according to one tradition, Haman is a descendant from Amalek, right? Haman ben Hamedata Ha'agagi. It says over and over again in the book of Esther and in the Haftarah. If you just read chapter 15, you'll see it says Agag many times. His name is mentioned many times in the Haftarah. So he's a descendant of this story. To me, this is a fascinating aspect of Amalek. In other words, it's not something which is just beyond. It's not just something which is wicked. It's not just something which has to be uprooted. There are many ways of uprooting Amalek. And it could be that if you could convince Amalek on some level to become the purest people in the world, then maybe you have destroyed Amalek in a way beyond the level of just battling them. That's what I'd like to glean from these messages. And it's interesting to note that in the Talmud, in several places, in Tractate Sanhedrin and in Tractate Gitin, I'm reading from Tractate Sanhedrin, page 96. The rabbis teach that the descendants of some of the most wicked people in world history, the descendants of some of the people who attacked the Jews in the most vicious of ways, some of their descendants became righteous Gentiles. And some of them even became leaders of the Jewish people. I'll just read some of the examples that are cited here. You remember in the book of Judges, one of the people who the general of the battle against Devorah and against Barak. His name was Sisera. Sisera. Mibnei banav, excuse me. Mibnei banav shel Sisera limdu Torah b'Yerushalayim. You know, from the descendants of Sisera, there were Torah teachers in Yerushalayim. Can you imagine going into a shiur in Yerushalayim? And your Rebbe is, who was his great grandfather? He's the one who was fighting the whole Jewish people. That's what it says here. Mibnei banav shel Sisera limdu Torah b'Yerushalayim. Mibnei banav shel Sancheriv. You have Sancheriv. Sancheriv is the one that we mentioned before that there's no what? Yeah, the king of Assyria, and the whole exile of the 10 tribes and the battle against the Jewish people. And Mibnei banav shel Sancheriv limdu Torah b'Rabim, of his descendants, of his offspring. There were people who taught Torah publicly, and the Talmud identified who are these people? Shmaya and Avtalyon, the two leaders of the generation. Shmaya and Avtalyon, the leaders of the Sanhedrin, the leaders of the Jewish community, the heads of the community, the leading rabbis. And then the Gemara says something which is amazing. The Gemara teaches Mibnei banav shel Haman limdu Torah b'Bnei Brak, of the descendants of Haman, of the descendants of Haman, which means of the descendants of Agag, which are the descendants of Amalek, right? That's what it says here. Mibnei banav shel Haman limdu Torah b'Bnei Brak. Imagine going to Bnei Brak and hearing a shiur from an outstanding scholar. And he's Haman's grandson, you know. Umano, and who is he? Umano, and the Gemara identifies him even according to one version of the Gemara. Rav Shmuel Bar Shelat, an outstanding Talmudist, an outstanding Amar. Rav Shmuel Bar Shelat. He's mentioned in many places in the Talmud. He was actually a Torah teacher himself. Rav Shmuel Bar Shelat. He taught children. He was he was a Torah teacher who was from the family of Haman. Now, how did this happen? I'm sure if somebody came and said I'm from Amalek, they wouldn't run to convert such a person, right? I mean, you're not allowed to accept converts, from the Amalekites unless you know what you're doing. Or maybe he hid his identity. That's what it says here in the Talmud. That Haman's descendants of
all of his sons were hung, no?
Well, maybe before they were hung, maybe they had children. It doesn't mean that they all left the world childless. And maybe he had other sons also. So that means of the descendants of Haman, there were those who taught Torah in Bnei Brak. That's what it says here. So maybe there is many people speak about Amalek as hopeless. Many people speak about Amalek as this is the aspect of the world which there is no light. And perhaps a certain reading can change our view of that. I'd just like to quote the teaching of the Maharal MiPrague. The Maharal MiPrague writes in his book called Netzach Yisrael. He writes, why is it that the descendants of so many of these wicked people become not only righteous, not only Jewish, but Jewish leaders, Jewish teachers, Jewish rabbis? And he says something because he says, maybe I'll read his language. Shaharishayim kasher heim muflagim birishut. These very wicked people who are very, very wicked. V'yesh lahem koach gadol ma'od, and they have this tremendous negative energy. Ei efshar shelo yeh mitzoraf koach shelahem el koach elyon, koach Hashem yitbarach. It means that if you just channel that same kind of energy, right? You channel what
into the good.
Into the good, right? There's a way. These are. I want to have to be careful with my language. These are outstanding people, right? They were outstandingly wicked, but maybe an outstandingly wicked person means they are outstanding, and somehow we have to funnel or channel or turn the focus. And then he says, "Rakshaya zeh etzlam b'tumah." This was in a negative way, in an impure way. Aval Eitzel Habanim, but the descendants of these people, maybe they had that same spiritual energy, which originally was used in a negative way, and maybe there was a way of turning everything around, and that's what happened with the descendants of Sisera, and that's what happens with the descendants of Sancheriv, and that's what happened with the descendants of Amalek, of Haman, as is recorded here. Banim nitlabein koach zeh ulekach limdu Torah berabim. We hope for a world that's perfected. We hope for a world way before this Purim. Lahafnot elecha kol rishei aretz. We hope that all of the wicked people on earth, will somehow recognize the truth of God, the oneness of God, the truth of the pure system, and that all of the negative energies that are being used currently in the world in any way should all be turned around, and all of these forces should be used either by these people themselves, or if not by them, that at least people connected to them, that even the most wicked person on earth can somehow be redeemed through certain kinds of levels of repentance, or certain kinds of levels of rectification. We do hope that Bezrat Hashem, Purim will represent this year the ultimate redemption for the Jewish people and for the whole world, and Parashat Zachor of Amalek will never have to be carried out in its literal way, because all the people who were, or maybe still are, connected to Amalek will change their ways and reach the highest levels of connection to God. Thank you so much for listening.